Welcome to Saturdays at 7, Christian Scholars Review's conversation series with thought leaders about the academic vocation and the relationship that vocation shares with the church. My name is Todd Ream. I have the privilege of serving as the publisher for Christian Scholars Review and as the host for Saturdays at 7. I also have the privilege of serving on the faculty and the administration at Indiana Wesleyan University. Our guest is Sandra Cassady, President of Rockhurst University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Programs in the health sciences, nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, etc., have grown in recent years as demands for graduates in those fields have also grown. In what ways, if any, do you believe college and universities are meeting such a need? And where, if at all, do you think more work needs to be done?
Yeah, well, certainly healthcare professionals are in high demand in virtually every place in our country and in the world. And our universities and colleges have been helping this by starting new programs and in some cases expanding existing programs. Sometimes it's hard to reach the students who would like to come to these programs. So we're seeing a bit more innovation in the development of hybrid programs that offer a portion, particularly the lecture material online. And that can be helpful, especially meeting some of the demand in rural areas. Other institutions might help if they're not into offering health sciences programs. They may create pathways for students to efficiently move between institutions.
In what ways do the histories and missions of church-related colleges and universities compel them to be sensitive to these needs?
Yeah. So, whether founded by a diocese or a particular order, I think many of our faith-based institutions have historically engaged with the world around them to help identify needs and respond to those needs. And for many religious orders, the Sisters of Charity, the Sisters of Mercy, the Sisters of St. Joseph, just to name a few, healthcare and healthcare education are really continuations of their religious mission and their ministry. I think these institutions, and I would add increasingly our Jesuit universities, are offering the opportunity to prepare students, leaning into our mission and our values, such as serving the underserved and caring for the whole person, body, mind, and spirit, and really operating within an ethical framework.
Yeah.
So ministering to those who need health care is a way for our church-founded or religiously founded institutions to do this and to carry out their missions.
In what ways do faculty who lead these programs then cultivate an appreciation for what it means to be human, and then also a particular form, say, of human flourishing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think as we reflect and build these programs at such institutions, it's a really fundamental set of questions for us to ask. I would say, besides teaching that foundational body of knowledge of the profession, and of course meeting the important accreditation standards, our faculty leading and teaching at faith-based institutions are often guided by doctorate. In Catholic higher education, Catholic social teaching, for example, which has implications well beyond healthcare fields. But at its core, Catholic social teaching helps emphasize that human beings are made in the image of God and, as a result, possess inherent dignity and helps us prioritize the most vulnerable in our society. And like I said, this has implications for business, the social sciences, and the humanities too. As I think about a Jesuit university that I serve at, we have a lot of emphasis on working in the cities where we reside and meeting people where they are. And we're not only looking at trying to help our graduates be ready and equipped to help an individual patient or client, but also trying to get to some of the root causes of social issues and improve systems.
Thank you. Most Catholic college universities are defined by a core curriculum reflective of the liberal arts tradition, reaching back millennia. and exercised also in the context of a particular expression of the church through an order of the diocese and those charisms. In what ways do these commitments enhance the programmatic offerings in the health sciences that Catholic colleges and universities are then able to offer?
Yeah, I believe the core curriculum certainly helps prepare graduates with the knowledge, skills, and abilities engendered in the liberal arts. They help our graduates get that balance of not only the science and again the knowledge of the profession, but help them become competent, caring, and compassionate healthcare providers. For some programs, it can be a little challenging because there are a lot of credits and a lot of information to learn in the curriculum. And then some of our institutions have very high credited core curricula. And so really a balance is necessary to help prepare the student to care for the whole person. I think we're seeing some very innovative approaches to this with the ability to integrate the foundational core that students are learning with application in the major or the program. So they might carry out high impact practices and applications in their clinical and field work where they're putting to practice these fundamental skills and helping integrate that professional curriculum with the core. I believe a nurse or a therapist or another healthcare provider who's educated in this context should bring a different set of skills to practice.
Thank you. I want to transition now to asking you some questions about your own vocational formation
Sure.
and your vocational formation as a healthcare educator. You earned an undergraduate degree in biology from the University of Northern Iowa, a master's in physical therapy from the University of Iowa, and a PhD in exercise science from the University of Iowa. At what point did you discern that the care for and the well-being of others were important dimensions of how you understood your vocation?
Well, this will date me. I'm looking back to probably junior high. I loved, yeah, which is really a term right now, right? Middle school is what it's usually called. But I really love the sciences and especially the human sciences like biology and anatomy and physiology. And I was fortunate while an undergraduate student to then get one of the coveted spots in physical therapy. And there were far fewer programs at that time. So there were a lot of applicants and few seats. And I remember just being so impressed with the impact a physical therapist had on the life and the quality of life of their patients and clients. And, I loved being in clinical practice. Kind of shortly after doing that and caring for people in a clinical setting, I really found my passion and my vocation to be in education. I loved having students with me in the clinic, but I thought, I could be maybe more efficient at this if I were part of a faculty.
Are there any particular questions concerning what it means to be human and how human beings were created that you find more fascinating or compelling than others?
Well, that's a big question. And if I go back to my roots as a biology major undergrad, certainly I found it fascinating, given that humans are part of the animal kingdom. What are those essential characteristics that define human beings and how we're both similar and different in physical form and behavior from other animals. So I think that's something that I always kept in mind.
What questions then concerning human flourishing and the good that can come for in relation to caring for human beings do you find most compelling?
Maybe some questions around on the behavioral side, the characteristics shaping our relationships with each other and the world around us. And then, some of those big questions that we try to get our students to grapple with, like, what is the reason and the purpose behind the creation of humanity? Did God have a specific need that was being fulfilled through our creation? And I've always found it fascinating to consider how much variability there is between what it means to flourish from one individual to another. And,
Mm.
as we work to care for the whole person and learning what's important to a individual, as opposed to making assumptions about what they need or what they should have. I think in healthcare, we think of that as person-centered care, right? Getting to know the individual and asking the questions about what's most important to them.
You served for a considerable number of years then on the faculty and administration at St. Ambrose University in Davenport, Iowa. And St. Ambrose is one of a handful of Catholic college universities that are diocesan schools, or schools that were established by leaders within dioceses, in say contrast to schools that were established by religious orders. In what ways, if any, does the relationship that St. Ambrose shares with the Diocese of Davenport impact how St. Ambrose understood its mission or understands its mission today?
That's right. St. Ambrose was founded by the first bishop of the Davenport Diocese. And, that it's different than being founded by a religious order where that charism of the order comes through. I think we always talked about if we had a charism, it would likely be related to service in the diocese,
Mm.
and how we help meet the needs of the community in the diocese.
In what ways then does that inclination or focus on meeting needs within the diocese then impact how the school exercises its mission in relation to health science programs?
Yeah, I think if I, reflect a bit on my days there, a lot of focus on justice and
Mm.
social justice come to mind. This notion of person-centered care. In fact, when I was there, we created an institute for person-centered care that
Mm.
not only prepared our graduating students from their first program, but also provided ongoing continuing education for healthcare providers who wanted to dive into person-centered care in a more significant way. And I also think, community is really important at a diocesan institution, and the university cultivated a community of learners that
Mm.
work to foster belonging and a commitment to service for the community. Certainly, the patron saint, Saint Ambrose, was also a figure that played a role as a theologian and a statesman who served as the Bishop of Milan. Getting into understanding some of the philosophies and the work of Saint Ambrose also helped shape that education.
Roles that you filled while at St. Ambrose included serving as a faculty member, but also as the director of the physical therapy program, an associate dean for academic affairs and student affairs, and vice president for strategic initiatives, and then dean of the College of Health and Human Services. Would you share the discernment process that led you from serving as a faculty member to embracing larger and larger roles in administrative service?
So as I mentioned earlier, Todd, I really moved to higher ed because I loved teaching and
Mm.
I loved everything about being a faculty member. In fact, I imagined that's where I would retire from. And my move into administrative roles, be it at the department level or the college level or the university level, for me was always more about service. It was
Mm.
about meeting a need at the institution, and not really about being real intentional that I wanted to be that leader.
Mhm.
And I think that surprises some people when you end up as a president. People think you went to college knowing you wanted to be a president. That wasn't the case for me. I like I said, I loved all the parts of being a faculty member and serving on committees and doing research and publishing, and thought I would do that forever. I'll give you an example. When I was at the department chair for physical therapy, our dean had to be out on 3 different occasions. And so the provost asked me to step in as dean, and I did that each time. And after the third time, and we knew the dean was not coming back for health reasons, the provost actually heard from the area, and they said, "Let's not spend the time on a search. You don't often get to take a dean out for a spin 3 times." And they ended up not doing a search and asking me just to serve as the dean. And one of the things I had a hard time letting go of teaching. I continued to keep my hands in, and I would give lectures and teach courses that did not change a whole lot because I felt like I owed that to the students, right, to stay current. But I just found, and I think every time I was ready for taking on more responsibility, I thought about it from that respect. How can I make a difference if I'm in that role? And how can I still hang on to this engagement with students?
Can you say a little bit more about what components of the faculty role gave you the deepest sense of satisfaction? And then what components of service as an administrator give you the deepest satisfaction? And how do they relate to one another and how do they differ?
You find yourself when you're doing two jobs like that you do often find where are the intersections and such. But I think as a faculty member, certainly it was about the impact of the educational experience on the students,
Mm.
right? And seeing that transformation in students. And in the discipline I was in, we admitted students who were both coming into as first year students to the institution in a pathway to our graduate program, and then also those coming in as graduate students. And you just saw the tremendous growth and transformation that happened. And then at the start of the graduate program too, when they were, finishing their experience, those long clinical experiences at the end of the program and just how ready and capable they were and yet excited and nervous, right,
Mm.
about their new professional career. But I think seeing that transformation, staying in contact with alumni and watching their careers blossom, the positions they moved into, the kinds of additional certifications and specializations. If they focused their practice in a certain area, you would often hear about that. And I loved it when students would stay in touch. In fact, I still have students who stay in touch with me, former students. I think as you move into administrative roles, then it's how can I support the faculty and the staff in those departments that I'm overseeing so that they can even in a bigger way make a difference in the life of the students. And then leading the leadership team to really consider and kind of going back to some of the things we talked about earlier, how can we in the communities we're in make a difference, meeting workforce needs in the community, in the diocese, and in the nation in a bigger way. So I think there's a lot of intersection. And if you keep some big goals in mind, but then remember that purpose of why you're there, really to serve the students.
Thank you. In 2022, then, you were appointed Rockhurst University's 15th president. You're also the first lay president and the first female president of this Jesuit university. Would you describe the discernment process you went through in terms of embracing a college presidency, but also leaving St. Ambrose, your home for so many years, and
Yeah.
embracing this calling to the Rockhurst community?
I did have a calling to serve at this level because I felt well prepared and well mentored to do so. And I also was watching all the retirements happening and knowing that we needed leaders in Catholic higher education to step up and to take on these roles. And I think, the discernment really begins with whether or not you should apply, right?
Mm.
In fact, I remember being called by the search committee, and when they told me I had looked into Jesuit higher ed, and I was certainly aware of some of the Jesuit schools throughout the country, but I also knew many of them were led by Jesuit priests. And in fact, that was the situation here, 14 Jesuit priests before me. And should I apply? And I think you do that questioning, and I really dove into what is the search firm advertising here on behalf of the board, and what does the board of trustees appear to be looking for, and what are they really prioritizing? And then I think you do that internal reflection.
Yeah.
Um, can I make a difference? Is this a place where I feel that I can bring the skills that are needed to help the university flourish in the future? So for me, a lot of it's about finding the right match. And then at each step along the way, you get the call to be a semifinalist and then a finalist. You keep doing that check. Is this an institution where I feel like I'm called to serve and where I
Mm.
can make a difference?
Mm.
And, higher education's a little tricky right now, right? And there are a lot of challenges And a president needs to know a lot about operations in many areas and have the tools to ensure that enrollment's going well and that fundraising is happening as appropriate and strong, high quality programs are being developed and you have the right programs. So there's a lot of operational work, not to mention finance, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot there to know. But when you're thinking about being the president of a Catholic university, I think you have to ask that question, or a faith-based institution in any religion, am I called to really lead the mission? And in Jesuit higher education, the president is actually missioned as the director of the work. And so am I up to leading this Jesuit apostolate and really going deep in the mission?
You mentioned the need for individuals to step into these leadership roles and to be prepared in order to do so. What advice would you offer then for individuals who are considering whether they're called to serve as presidents and presidents of church-related colleges and universities?
Well, I think you want to do your homework. And certainly, if you're not familiar with a specific order, you want to get to know some things about that order. You can certainly do that from reading and talking with leaders at other colleges and universities. I remember doing some calls to presidents that I knew who were at, or individuals could connect me with, to say, tell me about how this is going for you and what is your advice for learning about the order, and what suggestions do you have to deepen my understanding? And I remember getting some great advice from those who had gone before me. But I think that it's important for both men and women to ask themselves, am I at a point in my career where I believe I can help the institution? And in today's world, and especially if you're the first woman or first lay, is the institution ready for that? Is the board ready for that change? Can you lead change management? Because you're going to be doing a lot of that when you get there.
Thank you. As we've talked about, Rockhurst was founded by members of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, and serves as one of their 27 colleges and universities in the United States, and one of 189 college universities that the Jesuits lead around the world.
That's right.
Rockhurst also shares a unique relationship with Kansas City. Would you please compare how St. Ambrose understood its mission as a diocesan school and how Rockhurst understands its mission as a Jesuit institution, and the leadership that you then offer?
Yeah, well, I think as we've discussed, St. Ambrose really focused a lot on the diocese and the region there. Rockhurst, as we say, we're in the city for good. And uniquely, we have, I think, about 60% of our alumni live in the greater Kansas City metro area, which is tremendously high, I found.
Yeah.
And many individuals who are here in significant leadership positions. And, I found that for our students and our alumni, that opens the doors to many opportunities for the graduates and even for the learning as they're looking at internships and opportunities. But as I mentioned, I think that, we have particular values that really help shape both the liberal arts and professional education that serve the community well. I remember when I interviewed Todd, the search committee included the president of the Chamber of Kansas City. The Greater Kansas City Chamber was on the search committee and happens to be an alum. But that spoke volumes to me about the importance of Rockhurst in this community and being in this community for good.
Yeah. Thank you. In terms of the Jesuit charisms that animate Jesuit college universities, are there any in particular that you would note that are more critical or more pronounced at Rockhurst than maybe you've experienced or heard about at other institutions?
Well, we certainly lean a lot into Cura Personalis, or care for the
Mhm.
whole person here. And of course, that translates so well into many of the programs we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
Um, I think another, and we highlight a different value every year. And this year, we just came out of this academic year of finding God in all things. There have been a lot of challenges in the world in this last year, and sometimes it's hard to find God in all things. But we do come together as a community, and these values do help us. Discernment and reflection is certainly something
Mm.
that we prepare our students, and I think it's a part of our way of proceeding at Rockhurst. And also being contemplatives in action.
Mm.
Saint Ignatius was one who said, "Deeds, not words," and so we're often, as a university, in our specific programs and as individuals, evaluating kind of the world around us, kind of sizing up the signs of the times, and meeting people where they are, and going out and doing good.
When you came to Rockhurst, would you describe the ways in which you sort of went about assessing the potential that the university had in years to come and how to further advance its mission?
As a new president, I think I did what many new presidents do, and that's a listening tour. So I went around and I met with virtually almost all of the departments on campus, and got to know the people, because the buildings and facilities are important, and the grounds are important, but when it comes down to it, the experience both in and out of the classroom is about the people that are serving there, and so really understanding how the members of the faculty and the staff and the students saw that experience and such. One of the things that drove me to Rockhurst, or really brought me here and opened that my desire to pursue the application in the presidency, was I knew Rockhurst had a strong commitment to the liberal arts, which I valued very much, and in my prior Catholic higher ed experience, but also was really well known in business. So
Mm.
we have the Hillsburg School of Management, and it's part of our a College of Business and Technology. This is an AACSB accredited business college, which is, as you know, maybe the gold standard for business
Right.
accreditation, and only 5% of all the business schools in the country and in the world have that. So that was good to come in with that strong foundation. And I also came in at a time, and part of why I looked at the institution was this desire to grow in the health sciences. And of course, that had been a big part of my background. And so Rockhurst had just merged with St. Luke's College of Nursing. And the summer that I came, that college was coming onto our campus in a newly renovated facility. And it's been a tremendous growth opportunity for us. And so as we think about the future, we have a strong business college, we have a strong commitment to the liberal arts, but we're also growing in the health sciences space. And a big need in Kansas City is growing technology. So
Mm.
intersection between health sciences, business, technology, um, and administration set us up for a lot of opportunities to serve the community and help with workforce needs here right in our hometown.
Yep. Yep. And as you mentioned, 60% of graduates stay and live there within the Kansas City community. So,
Yeah, that to me was just remarkable. And sometimes we have students who come to us from Kansas City, but we have others who come to Kansas City and then stay.
yeah,
So it really has been an exciting place to lead in higher education.
yeah. As our time unfortunately begins to become short, I want to transition now to asking you to reflect upon how you understand the academic
Mhm.
vocation and the characteristics and qualities that inform it. You've served as a faculty member in various administrative capacities within a college or school, and now as a university president. So, what characteristics or qualities would you define as being most central to how you understand the academic vocation, and perhaps also as it's expressed there at Rockhurst?
Yeah, I think as I think about those things that really define our mission and who we are, we certainly lean into being Catholic, being Jesuit, and being committed to the liberal arts. But we also are very deeply committed to helping spark curiosity in our students
Mm,
and helping them gain that commitment to lifelong learning. There are very few careers in the world today where you can come out of college and know everything you need to know to be successful, right? And having that desire to continue to learn and to grow. I would also say leadership is
mm,
something that has been a strong part of our academic enterprise here. And certainly we know that students not only learn in co-curricular experiences and extracurricular experiences, but they gain valuable experiences in leadership through their clubs and organizations and service. So I think it's that holistic educational experience, both in and out of the classroom, building more opportunities to take the knowledge they have out into the world. We're focusing more on solidarity immersion trips and study abroads and participating in ways where students can see how they can apply what they're learning to
yeah,
Kansas City and beyond.
yeah. Thank you. For educators then who come to serve at Rockhurst and lead these efforts in relation to students, are there any particular practices as a Jesuit Catholic institution that's also rooted there in the Kansas City community that you afford those educators?
We do. We have an orientation program that begins certainly with learning our mission and our values. But we also have a program in the second year for faculty and staff to go deeper into their knowledge of Ignatian spirituality and Ignatian pedagogy, and that's called the Cardinere program. And
Mm,
it's a program that meets every couple weeks and really brings that community of faculty and staff together as
mm,
well. And they build relationships, but they also learn more opportunities to apply their learning
mhm,
to their classes. I'll just say briefly, we were fortunate. The Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities has a very rich network with a lot of learning and opportunities for individuals in various parts of a university to come together with each other at these at various conferences and councils. And one of the projects we were involved in this year was called the Ignatian Pedagogical Paradigm Pilot Program,
mm,
where our faculty and staff participate in experiences where they're using the values of Jesuit higher education and the spiritual exercises to help guide creating
wow, yeah,
experiences for their students. And so we had 12 faculty and staff participate in that. And that's a certificate that the
no,
AJCU will now roll out this year.
wow, that's great. Thank you. When seeking to exercise such an understanding of the academic vocation, are there any particular virtues that you believe are most important for educators to cultivate?
Sure. I think cultivating that genuine curiosity for learning
Mhm,
and that commitment to lifelong learning is one. Also, I think as an instructor, that humility is important. I think we've left the days where faculty are the sage on the stage, right? And we need to connect with our students in other ways and being open
mhm,
and helping our students learn
mhm,
civil discourse and that way to be open to different thoughts and perspectives. In Jesuit higher education, we talk a lot about seeking to understand, asking
mhm.
questions, assuming the best intent, and trying to understand different perspectives. And I think as educators, we need to model that for our students and help them practice that while they're here.
Yeah. Are there any vices then that you believe educators need to be vigilant about confronting and that may creep in and hinder their exercise of the academic vocation?
Sure. I mean, we're all humans, right? And so there's
Including professors.
right. We're always needing to learn and reflect and do our best to role model for our students. But I think we have to be careful of any prejudice or hatred or bias that we might bring to a conversation. And we certainly don't want to shut down opinions that are different than ours.
Yeah.
And so, again, being able, and I think that's one of the things we've worked on to try to give faculty skills that, you don't always learn in a PhD program. How do you manage difficult conversations in the classroom?
Yeah. Thank you. As we close now, I want to ask about the exercise of this understanding of the academic vocation, university, church-related universities. And in what ways in particular is the health of the academic vocation on such a campus reflective of the health that the university shares with the church?
I think very much so. In fact, I feel fortunate. I am appointed as a director of the work by a provincial who I have a chance to interact with in the AJCU, but I also have a local ordinary, a bishop here. And I think I've really enjoyed the opportunity to build a relationship with our bishop. And I believe there's a lot that the church can offer our institution and vice versa. I know in my first meeting with him, Bishop Johnston said to me, you do a program for us that's just invaluable. And that is, we provide an administrative preparation program for priests who are going to become pastors or administrators of their church. And that's something that there's not a lot of that in their formation. And so we give them the kind of this crash course in such. We have programs like our nursing programs goes out and does screenings in churches and helps identify individuals who need follow-up in healthcare. Maybe they have high blood pressure or a problem that's not easily detected. And I know we recently just leased a space on our campus to Catholic Charities of Kansas City, and they do some terrific work that aligns nicely with our mission and our values. And so we see more opportunities with them and internships for our students, but helping advance their work as well. So I think when we can come together to do the important work of the church, I see us as part of that environment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our guest has been Sandra Cassady, President of Rockhurst University. Thank you for taking the time to share your insights and wisdom with us. Thank you for joining us for Saturdays at 7. Christian Scholars Review's conversation series with thought leaders about the academic vocation and the relationship that vocation shares with the church. We invite you to join us again next week for Saturdays at 7.